Well, this does not look good at all. Let's see what we got under here. Oh man, that doesn't look good. Look at that. All right, so I got a buddy's 2000 Honda CR-V in the garage today. As you can tell, got some Milky coolant, got some Milky oil, and he dropped it off to get some suspension work done. But on his way here, he was having some issues with it stalling on him. And when he got here, he started telling me that he needs to have the oil changed because he had someone do the water pump, and the guy said that the oil was milky. Yeah, so the coolant's not looking so hot. It's kind of oily. It's not like, I mean, there's oil floating to the top, but it's not insane. And then he sent me a picture of the valve cover when they had it off and they were doing the water pump, and it's looking pretty milky in here. So you pull the dipstick. It's kind of hard to tell here. It doesn't look too bad. It's kind of started to settle a little bit, I guess. This thing's been sitting overnight. Yeah, so originally it's here for suspension work, but before I even start that, I'm gonna do a leak down test to see if this thing has a bad head gasket, because I don't want to put a bunch of parts on a car that needs engine work, like suspension parts, charge them a bunch of money, and the car's gonna die on them. Yeah, so we'll start with a leak down test. So I got the leak down tester here. Get it hooked up real quick, and then I kind of go over leak down testing, but I ended up just pulling out spark plugs, pull out all of them, and then start testing here. Well, the first one came out pretty clean, and it looks like some iridium plugs. I think these are iridiums. Usually the ones with the really small tips are iridiums. And the spark plugs look good. All right, so you need to set the cylinder you're gonna test at top dead center. It's got a little coat hanger, piece of coat hanger here. And I'm just gonna use it as a gauge to find out where top dead center is. It feels like that's about it right there. All right, so we're just gonna get the adapter and screw it down into cylinder 1 to do the leakage test. And what we're trying to do is we're basically gonna fill up the cylinder with compressed air and see if it leaks out of any of these other spark plug holes, the intake, or... All right, so with the leak down tester, you're gonna need some shop air. You don't want any more than 100 PSI worth of shop air. You don't need the compressor running or anything. So make sure you have at least 30 PSI in your compressor. We're gonna go ahead and calibrate this gauge here. We're gonna want the gauge to read at 0. So that's what we're gonna set it for. The knob here, it goes in and out. Okay, you're gonna want it out. Hook up the air. And you can turn the knob counterclockwise or clockwise, and it's gonna move the gauges around. We're gonna wanna set it at 0. And once we get it at 0, I'm gonna go ahead and pop that, and then we can hook the gauge up to the cylinder and see if we have any leakage. All right. So right now, we're looking pretty good. All right, so check out cylinder 2. We're looking pretty steady still. We're still within spec. So this thing totally passed the leak down test, which is great news that the head gasket isn't blown. I don't have any issues with the valves. And yeah, the original problem, well, one of the problems was with at idle, you'd rev it up and it would die. I think while I have this out, I'm just gonna compression test it since I have it out. And then after that, I'll go ahead and pressurize the cooling system and test that, see what we have after that. So if you're gonna run a compression test on your car, you're gonna wanna disable the fuel, okay? Because when we crank it over, we're gonna crank it over where it's cranking over about 4 times. We don't want it spraying fuel into the cylinders, okay? So you can go to your fuse box and just pull out an injector fuse, fuel pump fuse, even computer fuse, okay? But give it to me! Fuck you. So on the CR-V, there's a little 15 amp fuse. It says FI, which is the fuel injection. I'm gonna yank that out. All right, so we're looking at about 180, which is great. I'll just do the rest of them and see what we got. So last cylinder is about 175. They're all about 175, 180, which is totally fine with the spec. That's cool. So passed the leak down test, definitely passed compression test. Now let's pressurize the cooling system. All right, coolant pressure testing kit, super simple to use. Let's see, it comes with all the adapters you're gonna need to test a bunch of cars. Let's see if this fits on here. I think that's a little too small. You need it to fit perfect. Oh, that's it right there. Yeah. All we have here is a pump and a gauge. We're gonna pump this thing up to about in between 10 and 15 PSI. We don't wanna go any higher than that. And we're gonna see if this thing leaks off somewhere. So instantly, I pump it up and it's leaking down right away. It's going somewhere. Wow. So we pump this thing up and try to listen down into the dipstick tube, see if I can hear the pressure coming out of it. If that's the case, which probably is the case, probably got a cracked head or a cracked block. You can definitely hear it coming out of there. It's super quick too. Oh yeah, oh yeah. You can definitely hear the pressure in the dipstick hole, okay? Okay, so what I'm gonna do with this thing now, I think, since I can hear the pressure leaking down in the crankcase, it's coming out of the dipstick tube, I think I'm gonna go ahead and drain the oil and see what the oil looks like, and see how much water we have in there, and see if I can just blow coolant into the pan and right out the drain plug, you know? All right, let's see what we got here. Oh, just water. Look at that, straight up water. Yeah, like look right here. That's what came out at first, just water. Well, let's see what happens when I pump this guy up. Let's see what comes out of the pan. "15 PSI, and look what we got. It's just pouring out, dude. Well, the oil is definitely like chocolate milk. You can see that the water is on the bottom of it. It'll start to separate. Okay, this is kind of a real unfortunate situation here. Went through a whole bunch of diagnoses to find out if this thing had a blown head gasket, if you know, the valves were leaking and things like that. It came in for suspension work, was running poor. He would just die on him on the way up here. And he was saying something about milky oil. All right, and as you can tell, coolant is just running through the block of this thing. What I think happened was, and the information I got from the owner, was this thing recently had a water pump done, and we actually had a freeze not too long ago, but where the weather came down, and it was below freezing for maybe 2 days, and this thing had a really bad water pump leak at the time. So what I'm assuming is that it was refilled with water, and it's cracked the block, cracked the head, and then he recently just had water pump changed, and it was just too late, because most people, when they have like a leaky water pump and it just keeps leaking, they keep driving the car, they just fill it up with water and not coolant, because coolant costs money and water is free, especially if it's pouring out a lot, which it probably was. So that's what I'm assuming happened, is that the freeze got to it before you could get the water pump fixed, and now we're gonna need an engine, okay? Because really the only way to go in and find out exactly if it's the head or the block is to go ahead and pull it and take it apart and find out. Usually in that case, what it's gonna cost to do that, it costs you just probably go get a motor and swap it out. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, I hope you learned something. If you did, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. And if you have any questions, you can hit me up down in the comment box below. And yeah, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. You guys take care, be safe, and have a great weekend. All right, let's see what's going on underneath this valve cover. Let's see how gooey, let's see how gooey it is. Okay, let's see what we got under here. Oh man, that doesn't look good. Oh, look at that. Ooh. Yeah, that looks like icing. Yeah, there's definitely water. Let's see if I can see some type of crack. Oh, look. Look. Oh, no, that's not a crack. That's just silicone everywhere. Okay.